So even though the Maverick Lobo doesn't have launch control, it does have Lobo drive mode, which is the track only or off public roadway mode, which we're going to see what the 0 to 60 time of this truck is capable. So toggling over here on the right side of the steering wheel puts it into track only or Lobo mode, and we're going to see what the 0 to 60 time here is on this little Maverick. It launches pretty darn good. Quick shifting 7-speed automatic, and there's 60. Honestly, that's not terrible, considering this is the same 2-liter turbo powertrain, just with a slightly different transmission and thus gear ratios. Hey everyone, welcome back to another driving review video here on the channel. Today you join me in the 2025 Ford Maverick Lobo, or the sportiest iteration of this small compact pickup truck. Now, as usual, I want to start off with my acceleration test. We'll go ahead and put it into Lobo mode, which is the most aggressive mode for all-wheel drive and the drivetrain in and of itself. And we'll go ahead and give this Colorado a little bit of room and launch it. Look at this thing go. And we are already up to speed. So under the hood of the Maverick Lobo, you're going to find the 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder paired to a 7-speed quick shifting automatic, not the normal 8-speed that you'll find with the rest of the Mavericks with the same 2-liter turbo, producing 250 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque with standard all-wheel drive with a more advanced rear differential borrowed from that of the Bronco Sport Badlands, as well as the Maverick Tremor, just to give it a little bit more better power distribution and allow the vehicle to kind of rotate at times depending on what drive mode you have it in and obviously what surface you're on, etc. Now, the Maverick Lobo is certainly an interesting product that is newly available on the market for this 2025 refresh, given that it basically tailors this compact truck to that of the sport enthusiast market. And Ford has also since rolled out the Lobo to the full-size F-150, although I would argue the Maverick is certainly more of the appropriate vehicle to offer the Lobo on, because it is, a compact vehicle, has a little bit of sporty DNA already, buried deep within the vehicle, given its size and, the powertrains that they have offered with it. However, the Maverick Lobo still leaves a little bit left to be desired, which we'll be discussing throughout this driving review video. But I have to say, some of the mechanical and hardware tweaks that Ford has given this truck, including a stiffer, lower suspension with retuned spring rates and dampers. It gave it that more advanced rear differential, retuned the transmission, took out one of the gears entirely to essentially give it better performance on autocross and track driving events, not shifting nearly as much between second, third, maybe fourth gear, staying between second and third gear, and obviously changing the drive modes, offering a Lobo track only mode, which really dials up the performance of the all-wheel drive system, throttle response, steering, and things like that. Heck, they even borrowed the Focus ST front brakes to put on this vehicle just to give it a little bit more capability. And then you bring in the cooling aspects with the radiators and cooling systems borrowed from that of the 4K towing package. They really went almost all the way with this truck. However, some of the downfalls of the Maverick Lobo are going to be the kind of general purpose all-season tires that you'll find on it, as well as the standard synthetic leather seats, which do have Lobo embossed on them. However, they are not nearly aggressive enough for kind of what this truck might be capable of if you were to throw a really sticky set of summer tires on it, maybe tweak the suspension even further, although I think it's a huge upgrade from the standard truck, and lower the seating position and give it a little bit more bolstering. Starting out with my usual visibility behind the wheel of the Maverick, it's just like that of every other Maverick trim level, which is incredibly good. Given this truck has such a high upright seating position, you look down over the hood, forward visibility is absolutely phenomenal. The A-pillars are not the smallest, thinnest out there, but they're really not intrusive whatsoever. You have decent size mirrors with the 360 cameras, because this truck is equipped with the high equipment package. So you see the cameras at the very bottom of the mirrors, but visibility using the mirrors is really good. And then looking over your shoulder, you do have decent visibility out the sides of the truck, and then rearward, even with the headrests partially intruding on the window, I really don't have any complaints when it comes to visibility. Now, discussing ride quality very quickly, Ford, I don't believe, has released the exact changes to spring rates and dampers in terms of a percentage increase or a percentage more stiff than that of the standard trucks, but this is noticeably stiffer than those standard trucks. Now, if you guys have been subscribed or follow along here on the channel, you'll know I did have a 2024 Lariat Hybrid to test and review. Of course, that was before the hybrid powertrain became available with the all-wheel drive system, but I really did enjoy that truck overall. But obviously, because it was the hybrid, it's geared more towards fuel efficiency and wasn't the performance option at the time. Now, this one is certainly going to be the performance option, and one of the biggest tweaks is going to be the suspension and the ride quality. Now, with that being said, even though this truck has 19-inch alloy wheels, it still has pretty sizable sidewall tires, and ride quality is stiff but well controlled, and I would say well damped, to the tune of being pretty darn perfect for a daily driver. It's not so stiff that you're going to be jostled around, you're going to be uncomfortable, but it gives it way better handling dynamics and body control around around tighter corners, excuse me. So if you're looking for a sporty option but really don't want to sacrifice any comfort or any meaningful comfort, the Lobo is certainly going to give you that, and I have really enjoyed driving this truck and hustling it around corners. Now, that being said, like I said, the all-season tire is going to be a limiting factor. However, if you were to want to swap out the tires to something a little bit more sticky, a little bit more aggressive, I think the suspension would match those upgrades fairly well. Now, going over my bumpy section of road, unfortunately, we are following a slow-moving tractor, but these bumps are fairly moderate in nature, and you can see the Lobo does, move around a little bit. It's clearly stiffer than that of the standard truck, but the sidewall, the tire choice, and the overall ride quality is still very, very good. So I don't think the average person, at least the average shopper in the enthusiast mindset, would have any complaints with the ride quality with the Lobo. Now, transitioning here onto the interior, that's where things, like I mentioned in the introduction, get a little bit disappointing, if you will, especially given the price point and the cost of this truck. Now, Ford decided to keep basically the standard synthetic leather seat with this high equipment package. It has Lobo embossed in the backrest, some color combination differences versus that of the standard trucks. However, the seats are basically a carryover. And one thing I really expect with performance enthusiast oriented vehicles is something changed in terms of the seats and or the seating position. I find myself being too high up or sitting too far up in a sport enthusiast truck like this to where I want to be lower, feel more within the truck rather than sitting on top of the truck. And I think Ford really could have done something with their Fiesta ST, Focus ST Heritage in offering maybe not quite as aggressive as a Recaro seat as those vehicles in the past, but something, that just would have, clearly stated that this truck is, has capable track drive modes, but also is just, tailored to that audience. So I would have liked to have seen a more aggressive seat with a lower seating position installed in this truck. I think it has plenty of room between the belt line and where your actually head rests, but maybe that is something they can offer via maybe a performance package or something down the road if they want to really improve this truck a little bit further, and then pair that with a summer tire package. And I think this thing would be an absolute hoot to hoon around, as it's already meaningfully more fun. But the rest of the interior did receive the 2025 model year refresh, which gave this an updated infotainment screen, updated digital cluster, moved some controls and interior layouts and buttons around. We now don't have any of the climate controls located down below the AC vents. They have now moved into the screen themselves. This truck with the high equipment package does have dual zone automatic climate control, the Bang & Olufsen premium audio system. You have the Pro Trailer Assist with the standard trailering capacity, and a host of other benefits. I really do think the high equipment package is the one that I would probably spring for in this truck, given all of those upgrades. And I think the base truck, based upon kind of a base XLT trim level, is a little bit too basic for my personal lifestyle. But maybe if they had an in-between package with the audio system and some of the other smaller benefits, it might be worth it. But nonetheless, I think the high package is the equipment level that I think is more appropriate and suits my lifestyle. But the refresh brought some really nice changes. but also brought some really interesting choices, if you will. I really like the infotainment screen. It takes up the entire space that was formerly a cubby on the right side. You still have the cubby behind the screen, but the one change that I don't like in terms of the buttons and controls here down at the bottom is the volume knob is now on the far passenger side of the center console versus here on the driver's side. I still, after 6 days of driving this truck, find myself reaching for the trailering knob to adjust the volume. So if these two were flip-flopped, because honestly, I don't think the Pro Trailer Assist knob is something that people are using on a daily basis. Maybe there's a couple people out there. I would like to see those flip-flopped. I really also don't love the power sliding window button being all buried down there. I actually prefer it up top near the power sunroof controls. So that's another minor change I would like to see done. But outside of that, it has all the usual features that one would expect. It has Ford Copilot 2.0, which is the more advanced regular driver assist system currently available if you option the high package. But a lot of the interior is still pretty plasticky and somewhat cheap feeling from the more lesser equipped Mavericks that are in that upper 20 to low $30,000 price point. And given this one stickers for just under $43,000, although I built a exact same truck now and later in the 2025 model year, and it's up near $44,000 including destination, I would like to see a handful of more features and a slightly more upgraded, nicer interior on these top trim trucks, at least available as an option. This truck doesn't even have ventilated front seats, for example. It doesn't have some of the more advanced driver assist technologies, such as Blue Cruise. And when you look at the competition to this vehicle, obviously the Hyundai Santa Cruz Limited, coming in at nearly an identical price point, it has a lot more features and creature comforts, and not to mention a slightly nicer interior to match the overall price point that this truck is. But anyways, that aside, I think this is a meaningful upgrade in a lot of capacities, but certainly leaves a little bit to be desired. Now, putting the truck back into Lobo mode and hustling it around this corner here, you can really feel the front end is trying to push, but then the rear differential kicks in, and I think the tires would make a big upgrade. Oh, you can hear the boost and the turbo noises. You can feel it. It tries to rotate as much as it can using that rear differential. This is very, very fun to drive. Now, putting it back into normal drive mode and activating the driver assist functions, it's easy as pressing one button over here, activating it, and then pressing set for your cruise control set speed. And we are now using the Copilot assist function. I actually did about a 150-mile road trip out on the interstate with the Maverick, and I didn't really have any issues with the driver assist. Lane centering worked pretty darn well. Adaptive cruise control, of course, is using some of the radars at the front of the truck to predict and change the distance depending on what you have set. And if you're looking for kind of an average driver assist system, if you will, I think Copilot 360 Assist, especially with the 2.0 and some of the more advanced functions, works pretty darn well, and I would put it more towards the top of the list if I were to pick some out of the regular systems that are not hands-free functionality. Now, of course, Blue Cruise takes that up even another notch, and I really like Blue Cruise and a lot of the other vehicles I've tested, but unfortunately that is still unavailable in their cheapest compact pickup truck, the Ford Maverick, even with this refresh. I think the only issue I have out on the interstate is the fact that the tires and the road noise do start to come inside of the cabin, depending on the road that you're driving on. Now, you can see we transitioned into more of a smooth concrete surface, and it quieted down a lot. Now, the 8-speaker Bang & Olufsen audio system can overcome basically any audio level or noise level coming into the cabin. It gets very, very loud, but that's really not what you should have to be doing, is to blast music to overcome road noise. I think the Maverick strikes a fine line of being acceptable in this price point category of vehicle, while obviously not being too loud to the point that you're uncomfortable or bothered by it, so to speak. Again, tires can play a huge role in that, and changing them out could quiet it down even further. But I think the average person would find the noise levels inside the cabin suitable for a vehicle, anywhere from the upper $20,000 price point all the way up into the mid $40,000 price point. But outside of that, I've driven this vehicle now 277 miles this week, and the computer has been stating I've been receiving 22.2 mpg, and honestly, that's been mostly normal driving, not spirited to the point of, hard accelerations and whatnot. Although I could drive this truck in that manner and probably see substantially worse fuel economy. But 22 mpg isn't too far off of the city only rating for the 2-liter turbo. In terms of only interstate driving at 78, 79 miles an hour, I actually saw 29 mpg according to the trip information in the computer, which is really darn close to that 30 mpg rating of the window sticker. So I don't think you will see substantially different real-world fuel economy from that of the window sticker rating, which is always a nice thing to see in vehicles I am testing. And also another positive is the fact this truck takes 87 octane or higher, so it does not require premium octane fuel. Although it probably wouldn't hurt if you're pushing this truck and driving it, on track or spiritedly, to put maybe a 91 or higher octane inside it, just to make sure everything is performing, top notch and things like that. Just a couple of attributes to discuss, I guess, about the vehicle itself. The Maverick is certainly more of a utilitarian type of truck versus that of the Hyundai Santa Cruz. Now, I have done a side-by-side comparison. Check out that video for the 2024 model year vehicles. Those were both pre-refresh versions of those particular trucks. And it's clear to me as to how each one differentiates each other or tailors to a slightly different demographic. Now, of course, they will inherently have cross shoppers, but the Santa Cruz feels like a slightly more quality build assembled here in the United States. It has a more of a Tucson compact SUV vibe, which means a little bit more comfortable, maybe a little bit quieter on the interior, and obviously offers more luxurious amenities and things like that, where the Maverick is more of a utilitarian feeling vehicle, hard plastics on the inside, different use of space and cubbies. Of course, they have their accessory line that you can purchase for this truck. And then you have the slightly larger and arguably slightly more usable bed, which is 4.5 foot in length versus the Santa Cruz 4-foot bed. And, I think those are key differences that might make you want to shop for one versus the other. Now, in recent news, the Hyundai Santa Cruz isn't selling so well versus the Maverick, which is selling very well. And again, I think that boils down to the fact that not only the Santa Cruz does not offer a hybrid powertrain, but also now the hybrid powertrain is available with all-wheel drive for the first time for 2025. I think that will help sales even further. And then you throw in the fact that, Ford has these different trim levels and variants that, tailor to different audiences and are meaningfully or substantially different from that of their base work trucks or standard run-of-the-mill XLT Lariats, given the Tremor and now this Lobo, which is just a hoot to drive. I mean, the tires really are one of the limiting factors of this truck. And how fun would this thing be with a really set of performance all seasons or just summer tires? Because it doesn't have all of the power in the world, but it certainly has a good amount. And how frustrating it is for people just to not get out the way when you're trying to merge. But, overall, I think the biggest sticking point to me is ultimately going to boil down to the price point. This truck, as I'm testing, is going to be right around that $43,000, including destination, with the high equipment package. Now, of course, you can get that truck or the Lobo with the standard equipment package, which will sticker right around the $38,000 price point, including destination. But I think you're missing out on a lot of the equipment and features that really make the Maverick stand out and much more livable on a daily basis. So at $43,000 to $44,000, like I said, it's right in line with the Hyundai Santa Cruz Limited, which now for 2026 is getting a normal 8-speed torque converted automatic, which I have not driven that truck quite yet, but I am very interested to see how that performs and how it changes the overall driving dynamic. It might be marginally less sporty. However, you don't have any of the dual clutch tendencies, which I think are a lot of the reason why people shied away from the turbo Santa Cruz over the last several years of its current generation, really since it's been available since launch. So I think that will shake up the comparison a little bit between these two. Santa Cruz does tow a little bit more than this particular truck. So all that I think does come into play and is something to consider if you're in the market. So with all that being said, I think that is basically where I'm going to leave this comparison video, or excuse me, this driving review of the 2025 Ford Maverick Lobo. And you guys will have to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you guys enjoyed this video and or found something helpful, make sure to hit that like button below, subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the additional coverage, including my likes and dislikes and a full walk-around tour posted here on this 2025 Maverick Lobo and those videos from the Maverick Hybrid. I want to give a huge thanks to Ford for sending the Maverick Lobo out for me to test and review. I look forward to seeing your comments and opinions down in the comment section below. And as always, I hope to see you guys in the next one.